Hello, this is a short video for my Philosophy 326 class, Philosophy in the Movies. This video will be about the Aristotelian orderly universe. Last week we talked about Aristotle's four causes and the idea that for everything that there is and everything that happens, Aristotle thinks we can analyze the world in terms of his four causes that address four different questions. And this is the kind of thinking that is largely behind contemporary science. Not all four of his causes, but especially efficient causation, that which brings about a change or a new event. It's literally where we get our contemporary words cause and effect, efficient causation. The idea is something like this, that if there is an orderly connection, a predictable effect of certain sorts of events, of certain sorts of causes, this ultimately grounds things like laws of nature and patterns that science tries to codify in various ways. Now, what Monty Python's Holy Grail does, and this type of humor in general, it takes a more contemporary view that maybe the world isn't as orderly as we think it is, and there are some reasons why we might think that maybe Aristotle's sort of absolute orderliness isn't correct. Things like difficulty in sort of identifying causes in quantum physics. This is the sort of concern that makes people think maybe the world is fundamentally disorderly instead of orderly. But the truth is, it's really hard to tell. In truth, our universe has elements of both. There's an orderly aspect to the universe and a disorderly aspect to the universe. And what Monty Python does is it introduces lots of unexpected ways that the universe can be disorderly. Right from the very beginning, where it introduces you to a movie, and it's the wrong movie. And then they run the credits, and there's these bizarre subtitles in the credits with like fake Norwegian going on, where in the first moment of the movie proper, you see King Arthur cresting the hill, and the next thing you see behind him is his squire's assistant clanking coconut halves together to make a horse galloping sound. And King Arthur wants to have a conversation about sort of in-world things, but the first person he meets wants to talk about the coconut and what's it doing here, and that's not a real horse, and how in the world would a coconut get to England anyway? So from the very beginning, the Monty Python's Holy Grail tries to bring about questions about the cogency, about the orderliness of its own internal universe. And you see this at the ending as well, where it kind of raises the question, was all this King Arthur stuff occurring back in the Middle Ages, or was this whole movie just filming a bunch of nerdy LARPers who were running around and got arrested by the end of the movie? So there are many incoherences within this movie, and that's intentional. That's the way Monty Python style humor works. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, does a lot of similar kinds of humor. So bringing it back to the major philosophical issue, is the world primarily orderly the way Aristotle thinks, or is it primarily disorderly the way Monty Python thinks? And the truth is, philosophically, it's very difficult to identify. Scientifically, you cannot answer this with science in a lab. You have to answer it with philosophy. And if you look at the great worldviews historically, the most compelling ones try to find ways to address both a stable aspect and an unstable aspect. We haven't studied Plato's theory of the forms, but to summarize it very, very briefly, Plato says the world has both a stable aspect in the immaterial, perfect forms that are that sort of are the foundation of reality, but the physical world is imperfect, less important, and disorderly. So Plato has both features. A lot of traditional religious views find ways to get both features. For example, there's something called dualism. The most famous version of dualism is an Eastern worldview called Taoism, where they have a symbol with white and dark, the yin yang, it's called. And if you look at it closely, the way their worldview works is the world has two foundational principles, one of order, one of disorder. And the reality we experience is the combination of both of those elements. Christianity also addresses both these elements. Christianity talks about in Genesis, the world is created in a good, stable way, but very shortly after that it says sin and disorder enter the world, sin, disorder, and death. And again, it has both those elements, orderliness, disorderliness. And the most compelling worldviews usually find ways to account for both of those. All right, so that's a brief video on Monty Python and how it brings up this issue of orderliness and disorderliness in the universe. All right, we'll talk again soon. Take care.